Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you real plain for a minute. There comes a season in your life when you don't need to announce nothing, explain nothing, or prove nothing. You just need to disappear. Not run away, not quit. But step back from the noise, the opinions, the clapping, the doubting, and the distractions. Because sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to go quiet and get to work. See, people are used to the version of you they can predict. They know how you react, how you talk, how you show up, and as long as you stay that same version, they stay comfortable. But the moment you decide that 2026 is going to require a different you, you have to accept that growth happens best in private. Seeds don't grow on the surface. They grow underground where nobody sees the struggle, the pressure, the darkness. But that's where the real work happens. You don't disappear to impress people later. You disappear to confront yourself now, to fix what's broken, to strengthen what's weak, to discipline what's been lazy. Because let me tell you something, motivation will hype you up for a day, maybe a week, but discipline will change your life. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when nobody's watching, even when you don't feel like it, even when it hurts. A lot of you are carrying pain from years ago. Rejection. The merits that made you question your worth. But pain is not meant to paralyze you. Pain is supposed to teach you. If you learn the lesson, it stops hurting. If you ignore the lesson, it keeps repeating. Disappearing gives you the space to finally listen, to finally heal, and to finally grow without an audience. There comes a point in life when silence becomes more powerful than explanation. When you realize that not every move needs an announcement and not every plan needs an audience. Disappearing is not about running away from responsibility or hiding from the world. It is about stepping back with intention. It is choosing to pause the noise so you can finally hear yourself think. Most people stay stuck because they are too busy responding to opinions, defending decisions, and chasing validation. When you disappear, you take that energy back. You stop performing and start building. You stop reacting and start creating. That space is where transformation begins. Silence is misunderstood because people associate loudness with strength. But real strength is quiet. Real growth happens when nobody is watching, when there is no applause, no encouragement, no instant reward. In that quiet season, you face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, the excuses, the habits, the fears that have been holding you hostage. You begin to see clearly what needs to change. Disappearing gives you the courage to be honest with yourself, and honesty is the foundation of real improvement. When you remove distractions, you discover how much time you've been wasting. Time scrolling, talking, explaining, comparing. Disappearing is not about isolation, it's about focus. It's about deciding that your future deserves more attention than your past. You start waking up earlier, planning your days, and protecting your energy. You stop letting small comforts steal big dreams. Every hour becomes valuable because you finally understand that time is not refundable. In that focused space, discipline replaces motivation. Motivation is emotional and temporary. Discipline is a decision you make even when you're tired, bored, or uncomfortable. Disappearing forces you to rely on discipline because there is no crowd to hype you up. You learn to show up for yourself, to do the work even when progress is slow, to trust that consistency, not intensity, is what creates lasting change. Day after day, you keep going. That's how average people become extraordinary. Silence also strengthens your mind. When you're not constantly explaining yourself, you stop doubting yourself. You become less reactive and more intentional. You don't need approval because you're too busy improving. Your confidence grows quietly, built on effort instead of opinions. You stop believing in yourself not because someone told you to, but because you see the proof in your daily actions. Disappearing teaches patience. Growth does not happen on demand. It happens in stages. Some days you'll feel unstoppable, Other days you'll feel like nothing is working. Both days matter. Both days are part of the process. When you're silent, you learn to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. You learn that frustration is not a sign to quit. It's a sign that you're stretching beyond who you used to be. Another powerful shift happens when you disappear. Your priorities change. You stop trying to impress people who are not going where you're going. You stop arguing with those who benefit from you staying the same. You become selective with your time, your conversations, and your energy. That selectiveness is not arrogance, it's growth. You finally understand that access to you is a privilege, not a right. And as the days pass, something remarkable happens. You don't recognize your old habits anymore. The things that once distracted you no longer excite you. The mindset that once limited you no longer controls you. You move differently. You think differently. You carry yourself with a calm confidence that doesn't need to be loud. That's the power of disappearing with purpose. By the time you reappear, the change doesn't need to be announced. It shows in your discipline, your clarity, your peace, and your results. People will call it luck or overnight success, but you'll know the truth. It was built in silence. It was earned when nobody was watching. Most people wait to feel inspired before they change, but real transformation doesn't begin with a feeling. It begins with a decision. The decision to stop negotiating with comfort and start committing to discipline. Motivation is unreliable. It shows up when things are exciting and disappears the moment things get hard. Discipline, on the other hand, stays. It's what carries you through the boring days, the lonely nights, and the moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. When you disappear to work on yourself, discipline becomes your closest companion. Discipline is not punishment, it's self-respect. It's waking up and doing what you said you would do yesterday. It's choosing progress over pleasure and long-term fulfillment over short-term relief. At first, it feels heavy because your old habits resist change. Your mind looks for excuses, your body looks for comfort, and your emotions look for escape. But every time you push through, you strengthen something inside you. You prove to yourself that you are in control, not your moods, not your fears, not your past. When no one is watching, discipline reveals your true character. It's easy to perform when there's praise. It's harder when there's silence. Disappearing removes the audience and forces you to rely on internal standards instead of external validation. You stop asking, will anyone notice, and start asking, is this helping me become better? That sheds the direction of your life. As discipline becomes routine, consistency takes over. Small actions repeated daily begin to compound. 10 minutes turns into an hour. One good choice leads to another. You start seeing progress not in dramatic leaps, but in subtle shifts. Your focus sharpens. Your energy improves. Your confidence grows quietly. You begin to trust yourself because you're finally keeping promises to yourself. And that trust is priceless. Discipline also teaches you how to manage pain. Growth is uncomfortable. There is no way around it. Muscles grow by tearing, minds grow by being challenged, and character grows by being tested. The difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck is not talent, it's tolerance for discomfort. When you disappear and commit to discipline, you learn how to sit in discomfort without running from it. You stop labeling struggle as failure and start seeing it as evidence of effort. Over time, discipline reshapes your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who tries, but as someone who does. Your self-talk changes. You stop saying, I should, and start saying, I will. That internal shift is powerful because your actions follow your identity. When you believe you are disciplined, you act disciplined. When you act disciplined, your results reflect it. There will be days when discipline feels exhausting, days when progress seems invisible, days when old habits try to pull you back. In those moments, discipline becomes a choice, not a feeling. You remind yourself why you started. You remember that the pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts far longer. You keep moving not because it's easy, but because stopping would cost you the future you're building. As you stay consistent, discipline creates freedom. Freedom from chaos. Freedom from self-doubt. Freedom from constantly starting over. Your life becomes more structured, and that structure gives you room to breathe. You're no longer overwhelmed because you have systems. You're no longer lost because you have direction. Discipline stops feeling restrictive and starts feeling empowering. Eventually, people notice the change, not because you announced it, but because your behavior speaks louder than words. You move with intention. You speak with clarity. You carry yourself with confidence that doesn't need approval. And while others are still waiting for motivation, you're already moving forward, quietly building a version of yourself that doesn't depend on circumstances to succeed. That is the power of discipline. It doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you become. Pain is something everyone tries to avoid, but pain is also one of life's greatest teachers. The difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck is not the amount of pain they experience, but how they respond to it. Many people allow pain to turn into a prison, something that defines them, limits them, and keeps them living in the past. But pain was never meant to trap you. It was meant to train you. When you disappear to work on yourself, you finally give pain the space to speak, and if you listen carefully, it will tell you exactly what needs to change. Every setback carries information. Rejection teaches you where you need to improve or where you don't belong. Failure exposes weaknesses that success hides. Loss shows you what truly matters. But when life hurts, most people rush to numb the pain instead of learning from it. They distract themselves, blame others, or pretend they're fine. Disappearing removes those escapes. In the quiet, and pain rises to the surface, and that's uncomfortable. But discomfort is not danger. It's an invitation to grow. When you stop running from pain, you start processing it. You reflect on what happened, how you contributed, and what you can do differently. This reflection builds emotional intelligence. You become less reactive and more thoughtful. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? You start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That single question can transform a wound into wisdom. Pain also humbles you. It strips away ego and forces honesty. You can no longer pretend you have everything figured out. And that humility is powerful because it makes you teachable. When you're teachable, you grow faster. You listen more. You learn from others' mistakes instead of repeating your own. You stop seeing feedback as an attack and start seeing it as a tool. As you learn from pain, your resilience increases. Resilience is not about avoiding hardship. It's about recovering from it. Each time you endure discomfort and keep moving, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than you thought. That proof builds inner confidence. And not the loud kind that needs validation, but the quiet kind that comes from survival. You've been through things that could have broken you, yet you're still standing. That realization changes how you face future challenges. Pain also clarifies your values. It shows you what you will and will not tolerate anymore. It sharpens your boundaries. You become more protective of your time, your energy, and your peace. You stop over-giving to people who drain you and over-explaining to people who don't listen. This clarity is not bitterness, it's growth. It means you've learned enough to choose better. Another lesson pain teaches is empathy. When you've struggled, you become more understanding of others. You listen without judgment. You support without comparison. Your experiences deepen your compassion and make you more human. This empathy strengthens your relationships and reminds you that everyone is fighting battles you can't see. In the process of disappearing and learning from pain, you also redefine success. Success is no longer about image or approval. It's about peace of mind, self-respect, and alignment with your purpose. You realize that being unbothered is a form of wealth. That emotional stability is a victory. That healing is progress, even if no one applauds it. Over time, pain loses its power to control you. It becomes part of your story, not the headline. You carry the lessons without carrying the weight. You move forward wiser, calmer, and more grounded. The things that once triggered you no longer do. The situations that once broke you now build you. When you return from that quiet season, you don't come back hardened, you come back strengthened. Not angry, but aware. Not bitter, but better. And that is what happens when pain stops being a prison and starts being a teacher. Consistency is one of the most underrated forces in personal transformation. People admire talent, celebrate luck, and chase shortcuts, but it is consistency that quietly separates those who change their lives from those who stay the same. When you disappear to work on yourself, consistency becomes your daily language. It is no longer about big promises or dramatic moves, but about showing up again and again, especially on the days when nothing feels exciting or rewarding. At first, consistency feels boring. There is no rush, no instant gratification, no visible applause. You do the same things over and over, and it can feel like you are not moving at all. But progress is rarely loud. It happens in layers accumulating beneath the surface. Like water carving stone, small actions repeated daily reshape your life over time. Disappearing allows you to embrace this truth without distraction. Consistency builds confidence in a way nothing else can. Confidence is often misunderstood as something you're born with or something that comes from praise. Real confidence comes from evidence. When you consistently keep promises to yourself, you create proof that you can be trusted. You stop doubting your ability to follow through. You stop questioning whether you have what it takes. Your belief in yourself becomes grounded in action, not words. This steady repetition also strengthens your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who occasionally tries and start seeing yourself as someone who commits. Your habits become a reflection of who you are. When you consistently choose discipline, health, learning, or growth, those choices shape your self-image. And once your identity shifts, your behavior follows naturally. You don't force yourself to you act differently because you are different. Consistency also teaches patience. In a world addicted to speed, patience feels uncomfortable, but real change does not follow a deadline, it follows effort. When you disappear and commit to consistency, you accept that growth takes time. You learn to respect the process instead of rushing the outcome. This patience protects you from quitting too early, which is where most people fail. There will be moments when consistency is tested. Life will interrupt your routine. Motivation will fade. Old habits will call you back. In those moments, consistency is not about perfection, it's about persistence. Missing a day does not mean you've failed. Giving up does. You learn to reset quickly without guilt or drama. That ability to recover keeps you moving forward instead of stuck in shame. Over time, consistency simplifies your life. Decision-making becomes easier because your habits guide you. You don't waste energy debating what to do. You already know. This mental clarity reduces stress and increases focus. You have more space to think, grow, because you're not constantly starting over. Consistency also compounds results. Small improvements stack on top of each other until the difference becomes undeniable. The work that once felt invisible begins to show. Your skills sharpen, your mindset strengthens, your presence changes. People may call it a sudden transformation, but you know it was built one consistent day at a time. As consistency shapes you, it also reshapes how others experience you. You become reliable, grounded, calm. You don't overpromise and you don't underdeliver. Your actions align with your words. That alignment creates respect both from others and from yourself. Disappearing to practice consistency is not about isolating yourself forever. It's about rebuilding yourself properly. It's about laying a foundation strong enough to support the life you want. When you finally step back into the world, you carry a quiet confidence. You don't need to prove anything because your consistency already has. That is how consistency transforms you. Not overnight, not loudly, but completely. Your environment has more influence over your life than most people are willing to admit. You can have good intentions, strong goals, and real potential. But if you stay in an environment that drains you, distracts you, or keeps you small, progress becomes a constant battle. When you disappear to work on yourself, one of the most important things you do is take an honest look at what and who surrounds you. Growth requires the right soil, and not every place you've been standing is meant to help you grow. Environment is not just physical, it's emotional and mental. It's the conversations you have every day, the content you consume, the people you spend time with, and the habits you normalize. If you are constantly surrounded by negativity, excuses, and comfort, your standards slowly lower. You begin to accept less without realizing it. Disappearing creates distance from that influence and gives you clarity. You start to see which connections push you forward and which ones pull you back. One of the hardest parts of changing your environment is accepting that not everyone can come with you. Some people are attached to the old version of you because it makes them comfortable. When you start changing, they feel threatened, not because you're doing something wrong, but because your growth reminds them of what they are avoiding. Disappearing helps you avoid unnecessary conflict. You stop explaining your choices to people who don't understand your vision. You let your actions speak later. Changing your environment also means changing what you allow into your mind. What you watch, listen to, and read matters. Constant exposure to negativity, comparison, and unrealistic expectations distorts your thinking. When you disappear, you become intentional about what you feed your mind. You replace noise with knowledge. You replace comparison with focus. Over time, your thoughts become clearer and more constructive, which directly affects your actions. A supportive environment doesn't mean everyone agrees with you. It means you are around people and influences that encourage growth, honesty, and accountability. It means spaces where discipline is normal and progress is celebrated, not mocked. When you place yourself in such an environment, self-improvement feels less like a struggle and more like a standard. Disappearing also teaches you to create boundaries. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They're about protecting your energy. You learn to say no without guilt. You stop overextending yourself to please others. You realize that your time is valuable and your peace is non-negotiable. These boundaries give you the emotional space needed to focus on your goals without constant interruption. As your environment improves, so does your self-respect. You no longer tolerate chaos, drama, or constant distraction. You choose spaces that align with who you are becoming, not who you used to be. This alignment reduces internal conflict. You're not fighting yourself anymore because your surroundings support your direction. Another powerful shift happens when you take responsibility for your environment. Instead of blaming circumstances, you start making intentional changes. You reorganize your space. You adjust your routines. You limit exposure to people and habits that derail you. These changes may seem small, but they create momentum. You feel more in control of your life, and that sense of control fuels confidence. When you eventually re-enter the world after that quiet season, your environment reflects your growth. You move differently. You choose differently. You surround yourself with purpose instead of pressure. People notice the change, not because you announced it, but because your life feels calmer, more focused, and more aligned. That is the power of shaping your environment. When you change what surrounds you, you change what's possible for you. Faith is the anchor that holds you steady when everything around you feels uncertain. When you disappear to rebuild yourself, Faith becomes less about words and more about trust in action. It's believing in a future you cannot fully see while still showing up every day to work toward it. Many people say they believe, but belief without effort stays theoretical. True faith shows up in persistence, patience, and obedience to the work that needs to be done even when results are delayed. In quiet seasons, faith is tested the most. There is no applause, no reassurance, and often no clear sign that what you're doing is working. This is where most people give up. They mistake silence for failure, but silence is often preparation. When you disappear, you learn to walk without constant confirmation. You keep moving forward because you trust the process, not because you feel confident every day. That kind of faith builds inner strength. Faith also helps you let go of control. You realize that you cannot force timing, people, or outcomes. What you can control is your effort, your attitude, and your integrity. Disappearing teaches you to focus on what is within your reach and release what is not. This release brings peace. You stop stressing over things you cannot change and redirect that energy toward growth. As you work in silence, faith becomes practical. You plan, prepare, and execute while trusting that the results will align when the time is right. You don't rush the process or compare your journey to others. You understand that delay is not denial. Some seasons are meant for strengthening, not showing. This perspective keeps you grounded when progress feels slow. Faith also fuels resilience. When setbacks happen, and they will, faith keeps you from quitting. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs to stop, you see them as tests of commitment. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to deepen your trust and refine your approach. You'll learn to adapt without losing hope. This resilience turns setbacks into stepping stones. In this quiet season, faith strengthens your character. You do the right thing even when it's inconvenient. You stay disciplined even when shortcuts are tempting. You remain patient even when impatience feels justified. These choices shape who you become. Faith aligns your actions with your values, creating integrity. And integrity is the foundation of lasting success. Faith also reminds you that you are not alone. Even in isolation, you are supported by something greater than yourself. This awareness reduces fear and replaces it with courage. You take risks not recklessly, but confidently, knowing that growth requires stepping into uncertainty. Faith gives you the courage to keep going when logic alone would tell you to stop. Over time, faith transforms how you view success. Success is no longer just about outcomes, but about obedience to the process. You measure progress by consistency, effort, and alignment with your purpose. This shift removes pressure and replaces it with peace. You work hard, but you are not anxious. You strive, but you are not desperate. When you finally emerge from that season of disappearance, faith shows in your presence. You are calm, grounded, and assured. You don't rush to explain your journey. You let your growth speak. Your confidence is quiet because it's rooted in trust, not ego. People fear stability before they hear your story. That is the power of faith combined with work. It carries you through silence, sustains you through struggle, and prepares you for the moment when the world finally sees what was built in private.